If I was a PM out there now, I'll be a little bit worried what it looks like in 10 years from now. I think most PMs now need to consider, am I going to be more engineering or technical and kind of build prototypes and test that? That's my job now. Or do I go more into the design perspective, kind of figure out what is the experience I'm trying to deliver to the customer from a design perspective, right? If PMs don't embrace this, they will just be writing documents and researching things and delivering tickets. And I don't think that's what they would be valuable of in 5 years from now or 10 years from now.
Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Zivile, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Have you ever had in your life such moments where you have this one shot and you missed it?
Yes, I actually have a funny story. I don't know if it's a funny story, but I worked in an agency many years ago, and we had a chance to work for Nike skateboard. And they wanted to do they made a video for skateboarding, and they wanted to distribute this live all over the world. And us in the creative team had an idea that we could make a mobile second experience. And while the movie was running all over the world, you could kind of get facts and interact and stuff like that. And we built all of that, and the day came. It was only one day, a countdown. We launched it. Did not work in front of 500,000 people or something.
No.
It was the most. And we were me, actually, a Danish startup guy called Mads Victor. Me and him were parallel coding and deploying new versions of this while the whole thing was happening. It was just Mikey was pissed off. Of course, it was a complete failure. Right?
Oh.
But we were you had this, you could not go back and relaunch it. It was just it was distributed that one time, that moment all over the world.
How did you feel?
Horrible. I learned I don't want to deal with live events too much anymore. I was really live events is scary. I think live events are quite scary.
Oh my God. Okay, I think it's a great conversation starter. Ladies and gentlemen, we're saying hi from Copenhagen. Today I have with me Dennis Green-Lieber with a very beautiful last name. He mentioned that only 4 people in the world has this last name.
Yes.
Because it's a merge of yours and your wife, right?
Correct.
So,
We merged it together. We thought we needed to be unique.
Well, I'm pretty sure you are. It's amazing. But Dennis, welcome to Perception Paradox. So glad to have you here.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing today?
Today, good. I think the sun is shining in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Building a new startup, trying new things out, tons of learnings. It's just it's always fun, but at the same time, anxious. So it's a lot of interesting events along the way. You tend to forget how it is to start from zero. When you've been in a kind of tens or hundreds, getting back to zero is so different feeling and environment. And I think it's fun, but it's also kind of scary.
I have quite some questions now immediately, but I guess for the audience to get a picture about who is Dennis and why we're here. We met with Dennis during one of the events, or more precisely Tech Barbecue last year through our shared friend Nikolai from Digital Hub. Hey Nikolai, what's up? And I do recall him talking a lot about startups and always cracking some jokes and stories along the way. Then we reconnected. We were talking also about different projects, ideas. But basically, Dennis is a go-to guy when it comes to product scaling, startups. You raise capital yourself. You helped raising capital on this for larger companies. Worked for major scale-ups and startups in the ecosystem. Invested some yourself. We've just discussed a bit how does the investment work when you invest, for example, a
little bit, how little you get out of it. Yes, yeah. Exactly.
But I'm so glad that you are here and we're finding time while you're building something new. So before we jump into this from zero to hero, from hero to zero kind of fluctuation, can you brief us about your story?
Yeah, where to start? I had a weird kind of transition into this category. So I actually started as a film editor back in in 90s. I worked for the Danish Broadcasting Association, worked on film sets and stuff like that. And then
that's why we're having such a professional set right now.
Exactly. Beautiful. Lighting's great.
We had to put the walls on.
Exactly. There's a whole crew behind this. You don't know this now. But no, and then, someone asked about hey, can we put some stuff online? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And that kind of opened up my whole career. Started as an engineer actually in more agency space. So I spent 10 years, that's what I was saying before, working for brands like Nike and Coca-Cola and Reebok and all sorts of stuff all over the world. And then my first venture was Falcon.io, and I knew the founder there, and he's like, oh, we're scaling. And they were on the front page of the newspaper because they raised €1 million. I was just like, whoa, this is insane.
Which year was it?
I want to say 2012 or 13 or something like
Something
this.
around that time.
Yeah,
right?
it's some years ago now.
Yeah.
And I took over product engineering, not really knowing what product management was. No one, it's kind of a newer category coming out of the valley into to Europe. But we built that from like, 0 to 20 million ARR, raised, I think, like 40 million euros in that process. And I think we became like 150 people or so. I left the company, tried to do something else, and then they ended up exited at some point, which was, a good journey and a good story around that. Then I worked at a bit in a venture studio. I built a startup myself, completely failed on that.
What kind of startup was it?
So I actually always thought a lot about, managing people is an interesting thing. So I was trying to figure out, like, how do we amplify managers in the sense of how do you conduct one-to-one conversations better? How do I pick the best out of you? How can we use that data to actually build more insight to the manager? But the HR space is a complicated sales domain. I learned that very deeply. And at the same point, we did see successes like Pecan or some similar that comes out of it. It was an interesting moment in time, but it really didn't, there was not really a strong product market fit, and we ended up selling it off for very cheap. And then I became an IC, and I've been building AI since that. So I think that's kind of been the interesting part that I've done the last many years. And then now starting from zero again.
That's cool. What made you to start now from zero?
Some of it is life situation, my kids are teenagers. I've been spending so much time in this domain now with AI and product management and stuff. So I find it was a bit of a good timing in life to kind of figure out what to do next. What do I do the next 10, 15 years of my career? And I think if I wanted to build a company, it's now, because it takes 10, 15 years, right? And I don't want to be in my 60s and 70s. I'm in my mid-40s now. People tell me I'm stupid building a company in my mid-40s, but
why?
I don't know. Like, people are like, "Oh, you should be 25 and young and eat ramen noodles all day long." I think yes, that works also, right? But like, I do also think bringing senior people together and in our with our experience and stuff like that. I'm not saying we make less mistakes, but I'm saying, like, there's some experience we bring to the table.
Yeah.
But like, some people are like, this is like, why don't you just take a good job and make some good salary?
And what makes you actually keep doing now what you're doing?
I like the excitement of solving complicated problems. Like my father is like, he's an engineer, mechanic, and I always had to learn how things work with him. Like, he did the same with my kids, which were quite interesting things. So he would buy them like old printers and old clock watches, and he asked them to break them apart to understand how they worked. And in the beginning, I didn't really like consider why he was doing it, and it was just, and then I asked him why. It's like, you have to understand how things work, and I didn't understand that was really part of my DNA from a kid, so I always want to kind of like break things apart and kind of like reassemble them. So like buying Lego sets, I built the initial thing, and then I broke them in 1,000 pieces and tried to build new things. So I kind of really like the process of trying to solve very complicated problems, taking new things and kind of bring them together somehow, and see if we can build new products out of it.
Wow, that's really inspiring. And I mean, it is, sometimes when you're making that change, it's so easy to get where the society wants you to get drowned, or where it's less risks involved.
Sure. Like, everyone in my friend group is like, take a job, pension, like all these type of things. And I think very different in that sense. And I think it's about taking some chances. As long as we don't want to put myself in a situation where we can't afford rent and, kids are, starving, like all this type of stuff. But I do think the ecosystem is way different than it was 20 years ago. Speaking about the 1 million versus just being able to get 1 million now is a lot easier, right?
Now you don't have 1 million. It's a regular news. It's not even news worth it.
Exactly. 1 million, no, congrats.
Congrats, but you could have done better.
For sure. No. But you're right. And I think that gives the chances for whoever who's sitting out there in their mid-40s and not taking, like, I'm in this like slipstream of like, have to have X salary, I have to make 20K or not, and like all these type of things. So I think the ecosystem is way better now, and capital is better now. It's not like the US where you can get whatever you want in a second, but like, it's definitely better than it was 10, 15
and
years
I feel like it's more opportunities now. Also, it depends where you're building, which space. But EU also covering had the tickets if you raise some governmental funds.
Yeah. So in Denmark we have like iFood, a good example. Yeah. I think other countries have similar.
They do.
Of course, there's the interesting programs in the UK and in Sweden, stuff like that has another side effect for angels and stuff like that. So it is It is a lot better.
So Dennis, you've been working a lot with products, right? And you also both product-led growth and also sales-led growth. Your experience is super diverse, but at the end of the day, it's still all around some kind of product.
Yes, yeah. I'm a product guy at
Yeah.
heart, right? As speaking about before, like I like to bring things apart. And
Speaking about this whole experience and what was it, over a decade? No, you've been in
Yes.
product. How
Yes.
did it change the way we approach the product companies and the product building itself? Because with new technologies coming in, dynamics are also changing, user experiences, generations.
I think it's been a weird kind of. I feel like there's some weird sinus curve kind of going on, because I think when we started, there was not like 10, 15 PMs in a big company. There was like, actually at some point in Falcon, I think we were like 2, and then we had like 40, 50 engineers. It's just like the ratio was like pretty crazy, right? But I actually, at that point, when I reflected, we had a really good team of engineers who knew how to solve problems, not just build whatever was in the tickets, right? And then what happened, kind of like, we almost over-engineered and over-designed the entire org infrastructure. Like, oh, we need 1 PM per 5 engineers and a designer. And then everyone planned their business like, oh, we're scaling a product business to 40 people, so we need 3 product managers, 3 designers, 6 engineers per group and stuff. It was kind of like a back of the napkin Excel measurement and stuff like that. And I think what we're seeing now is actually quite an interesting collapse. I think a lot of people are considering what are the jobs that, like, if you take 90% of a PM, and sorry for all the PMs, I hope you're not going to hate me for this comment, but it's actually, most of it is figuring out what is the customers need and want, and what is it the market is demanding, and try to turn that into something tangible that a good design and engineering team can figure out how to solve, right? It's not necessarily you, the PM, who's solving it. It's like you're bringing this knowledge to a group of people who are great at engineering or designing and something else. And I think when we look at what happened, the GPT moment, and suddenly people are like, oh, I could just take all this stuff and try to ask things and figure things out faster. You're actually seeing more and more trend of companies who would probably have smaller PM teams and have engineering teams being problem solvers and more kind of product-minded engineers. And then they're more the principal people who's delivering a unique insight at scale, right? So like, sorry, like a VP of product would come in like, okay, I see the market and the need is this, right? And then these like 5 or 10 teams can figure the problem out, instead of we have to have 1 PM in every group, because it's kind of, what are they managing? Are they managing what you're coding and tickets and like all this type of stuff, which I think is like, it's not what was intended to do when people start thinking about product management, like Anderson Horowitz, Ben Horowitz wrote this book, like it's like the CEO of the product and all these type of different dimensions of it. I just think there is a big collapse in it. I think we'll see. If I was a PM out there now, I'll be a little bit worried what it looks like in 10 years from now. I think we have to find a way. Do you want to go more technical?
Yeah, we can go. I'm curious now. We can go actually more technical, because I think many people who are listening and what I've experienced from the environment, right? When it comes to interesting insights you are giving when it comes to product management, right? It becomes a ticket allocation, basically trying to find a solution, but you're not necessarily.
My argument is that then you have a really bad team who cannot self-organize, right? If you cannot tell a 3 to 5 men and women product team, hey, the customers are complaining about this thing, we can't solve it for them. Yes, could you go make a ticket for that? Like, I'm sorry, like you're highly paid, self-organized people. You should be able to figure that part out. I don't think that's the reason why I'm here, right? Like to create a Jira ticket and stuff like that. So I think there's some mismanagement of what the role is, and there's some mismanagement of what the expectation of a product team is. And I think this is going to be quite changing over the years.
How did you end up in this case, and how do you see it changing then?
But I see it changing now. Like you see one dimension is that a lot of people are looking at having way more lean teams, right?
Yeah.
So you basically now have to be a little bit more clever about who does what, right? So that forces the role of the PM to be different. As I was saying before, I think most PMs now need to consider, am I going to be more engineering or technical and kind of build prototypes and test that? That's my job now. Or do I go more into the design perspective, kind of figure out what is the experience I'm trying to deliver to the customer from a design perspective, right? Actually, this is what I do when I build stuff. This morning, I spent an hour doing some shitty Figma stuff just to share it with my team. Like, this is how I imagine this thing would experientially-wise look. Or we go build a prototype in, Claude or Lovable or something different. It's like, hey, this is actually how I think technically could work. And I think if PMs don't embrace this, they will just be writing documents and researching things and delivering tickets. And I don't think that's what they would be valuable of in 5 years from now or 10 years from now.
That's so interesting. And you were mentioning already what something before the episode you shared, right? What it would be interesting to touch base. How fast we can build nowadays a product
Yeah.
that lovable is insane, for
Yes,
example.
yes.
One
I
of
think
the
Anton and team has
examples.
done amazing stuff there.
Yes, and they still keep growing. And it's
Yeah.
every time you sign up, it's just like mind blowing. And I'm like,
But they're definitely not the only players, right? So you also have like Bolt
Yeah.
and Replit,
Yeah.
and I think one called like Data Button. There's like a bunch of players who's taking different angles of that. But I think speaking about what is changing, like suddenly like this whole vibe coding thing we all know is like a term, right? And you can build things. And I think historically, like I remember when I met the first engineers, I was like in awe that they could code something. That was kind of like, wow, right? And then I started doing it. I think, oh, okay. And then I was in awe that people could build something scalable in the cloud, right? This is like in the 2012 and 13 and stuff. Now I'm more in awe when people could come to really great product very fast than it is like coding is like, I'm not taking a piece of coding. I think coding it's really good discipline and skill, but like the speed of this acceleration is like extremely fast. So, and we're only at the first year, if you think about it, of like this whole code generation, cursor to lovable. It's happening right now. So like, what does that look like in 5 years from now? We don't know. And it's like all over time. But I think my question is, that, as I said to you before, is that how do we accelerate the same thing for understanding the customer and the market? Yeah. That's the question I was sitting with. Like, wait a minute. So like, if it still takes me like days, months to figure out a problem or how this works in the market or what the customer want, we're kind of screwed because it's like sitting there with like a lot of guns and no animals to kill. And like, I don't know if that's a good reference, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like you're sitting there, you're sitting with this, like, I can code anything extremely fast. And you're like, but I don't know if people want it, or I don't know if it's the right direction. And then you could argue, oh, I'll build it fast and just ship it. And that's an argument. That's a good argument that you would do that. But like, then that's good from 0 to 1. But when you go from 1 to 100, you start having customers, you start having competitors, you start having people who are churning, someone who's complaining. You have like, they say stuff in the sales process. Like there's tons of stuff that's happening in that process, which is like the most slow thing ever. Like it's like a snail. Like it's an amazingly slow snail, right? I kid you not. It's like, and I was talking to 2 customers today. It's like, oh, but like, how do you know why you're winning and losing in the sales process? Like, oh, like we do every quarter, like a review, and we don't look at all the data. This is how it happens in 80 million euro businesses. It's not just like a small, dumb business. It's like people are good business people, and it's just slow. And I was just like, that was what kind of daunted me. It's like, oh, if we on one side have the PMs who's trying to figure things out, and that's slow, it's expensive, and the other vector of that is that building products is like that. It's like, we have an unbalanced problem. We need to accelerate both sides. So when in 5 years from now, when I could go in and build something lovable, ship it to market, now growing a business, I can learn the loop of what my customers want and need and how they think about our product at the same pace of me rewriting a prompt to make the product. Does it make sense? Like
it does make sense. Yeah. But how can we do it now? Something similar with grasping, I don't know, specific audience insights.
But there's a lot of people are doing, the market looks like this. Is like you find like UXR, so like user research, and you find people they interview people, they do surveys, they put that in Dovetail, they organize in Dovetail, they synthesize it, do some finding, goes to products, say, we found out something, and then products like, yeah, but I want to dig into it myself because I haven't seen it, right? So there's like some problem there. And then at the same time, they also go on that on the sales side, like what are people saying in the market? What's the competition like? And all of that is a lot of different people doing work.
But then sales can use also the artificial intelligence on top of that, no? Some kind of tools to research it.
Of course they can, but like they're not, that would be good at one-to-one, right? So like, okay, I need to close deal A. Tell me how can I make them close deal A, right? And I think that's very operational one-to-one. I think where it becomes interesting is like, how can we learn from the rest of the system? There's no really like a reinforced learning into the process. Like if we sell to this customer and they actually do this in the product, are they long-term good customers? And how do we correlate, keep doing more of that instead of more of this, right? And that creates a friction that you really would be wrong 1 year or 2 years from now instead of being wrong earlier and kind of iterate around that. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
It does make sense. For me, immediately gets now, we speak a lot about the AI agents, right? That actually targets different teams
Correct.
sales, HR, whatever, wouldn't be this kind of direction a solution to get those insights closer towards?
No, for sure. So like the way we think about it now is like you have a series of agents that looks at the journey through a sales process, looks at what the customers say, look at who are the customer, look at the persona of each user. How are they using your product? Okay, what kind of people are in the market? What do they generally also do? Like all these type of things. All of these things can be agentic systems that you bring down to one system down the line, and really be able to bring that data upwards, right? So like I think that's the way the world will look. It's like you have agents that look at these things, but you will also have agents that communicates it back to you, right? Because like I'm a sales guy, I want it this way, and I'm a product guy and I want it that way, and I work in marketing and I want it this way. It's just like how do you also tailor the output to be valuable, right? And that's where we have to really think about something else that I think a lot about is that I think the opportunity in markets right now is to make things more team player sport. I don't know if that makes sense, because I think there's a lot of tools for like take Gong, great company, 300 million, they just do sales, right? And then they're like, oh yeah, but product could also be there, and you're like, yeah, but you didn't consider me as a first-class citizen. You considered me as like a third one, and maybe I can get some value from it. And I think products now, when you start bridging this like insight stuff, you need to really think about like how do I make it valuable for everyone, but tailored.
Okay.
Which is hard. This is extremely hard, actually. But I think that's a value proposition on its own.
Okay, is that something you're building right now? Is it something we're about to talk?
We're experimenting in that domain. No, for sure. No. This is definitely what we spend all our day, me and the team, kind of like figure out like how does this look and feel like, and what is the way we can accelerate customer intelligence at scale. I think that's the same. We have to get to the same pace. Like I want to be in a place where you would be as fast as you will with Lovable and Bolt to build products, or Cursor to build, kind of more different type of dynamics. And then at the same pace, figure out who the hell is my customer, what are they doing, what do they care about.
That's a tough challenge, tough cookie to solve, actually.
It is, but I think if we solve it right, I think like 5 or 6 years from now, the stack looks very different, and if you can get to that place, companies can be more lean because you have less people to consider like researching things manually and just only spend the time on what's really valuable, right? I'm not saying don't talk to customers. I'm not saying don't write code, right? I'm just like, let's accelerate the things that we shouldn't be spending time on, and then just really focus on crafting the best quality of the stuff we should spend time on.
What's the most challenging thing actually to make it the reality then, to gain those insights?
I think the one thing, like there are like different challenges, right? So I think if you take kind of the technical element of it, LLMs, they hallucinate and all this type of stuff, right? So we have to be really clever on like how do we bring the right data and a good quality, and how do we guardrail the systems and like all these other things is kind of like the technical aspect of it. I think the other side of it, which is more like what category are we in? Like what categories is like people are used to buying categories. Like, oh, I'm buying a customer management software, so it's CRM. Okay. I'm buying a code editor, so that's this. And so what we are in is like customer intelligence space, which is like not really a defined category. So I think one of the things we have to be considerate about is like, how do we educate the market that that's what they need? They're actually doing the work right now, right? Between RevOps and product and CX, they're doing it, but it's not really a defined, like a horizontal word they have, like this is what we're doing, right? And I think that's some of the challenge we have to overcome is like how do we breach into that market and kind of like build up this kind of concept. Yeah.
Because the market is also like very much this kind of emerging, I would call it still new category.
It is a new category.
At the end of the day.
And a lot of things are changing, right? Like I meet more and more people than I did 2 years ago who's like downloading things and trying to upload it in Claude or something else and try to ask questions to it. Like but we are also a little bit in a vacuum. So we meet a lot of people excited about that place. I'm like, sorry, honey, but my wife is like, she's not like an early adopter on these type of things. So it took her like 2 years before she really tried ChatGPT. And she's like, oh, this is kind of fun. She didn't really like, oh, I have to use this every day and this way and stuff like that. So there's still a whole category of people who are like not there yet, right? So like who would no, we have to do it like we used to do in the old days. And like I think we're so early in this process that we still haven't seen outcomes. Yeah. And we will see down spirals like we've seen now this week with like 11x, right? It's a good example. Again, I don't know anything. I'm no expert in the domain.
Yeah,
but like you see these like hopeful stories that turn bad. And then actually, I think pulls back a little bit of how we want to adopt. Then we're a little bit more in fear to adopt something. So I think this is what I think also, at least I'm old enough to remember the cloud category, right? Like people were like, oh, you're putting stuff on Amazon?
Yeah.
I actually think at some point in Falcon was like the biggest customer of Amazon in the Nordics, or at least in Denmark at some point in time. And it was just like, wow, you put stuff in the cloud, and now I'm a little bit concerned because Now it's just like, you're not in the cloud.
You're
like,
kidding me? Like you're holding
but it's back to
your
that.
space. Yeah.
It's back to like you raise $1 million, nothing, right? So like these like our benchmark, it's moving, right?
It's moving very fast.
Yeah. So I think like in 5 years from now, the benchmark of your acceleration of code delivery or acceleration of design or acceleration of customer intelligence, the benchmark is completely radically different than it is today.
Well, we're still in today's landscape, right? We're getting towards the future, but even the competition and competitive advantages are changing right now.
Yes.
We can really build very fast, right? But then everyone gets,
Yeah.
what's the moat in that actually?
Yeah. No, it's a really, really, really good question, because I think one moat can be distribution. Right, like delivering something extremely fast to a lot of people in a very efficient business model way. I think that could be some level of moat, like because you can defend that your scalability is really good and stuff. But I don't think it's the strongest moat. I think the way I think about it in an AI domain, and actually comes a lot from where I was before in Neuron. So Neuron's built an AI for marketing, and they actually have proprietary data for how people are responding from like attention and memory on advertisement. So it was hard for the competition to say we do the same, because like we have something very proprietary data in that sense. So I think any AI company right now is just think about like, is there anything in our system that we build which builds a new kind of data set that does not exist inside the business? And so like in our case, we can connect a lot of data plus the external. So we have like a memory, if you will, per customer. Like what do they do and say? And that thing, they cannot take with them somewhere else. So if they leave our company, they have to start all over again, right? And I think that's where these companies have to think about like, what is the unique data we have or can create in this process? Otherwise, I think OpenAI or similar are just going to like connect to something, and you can ask, which deal did we close last week, and it will tell you from the CRM. That's not going to be moat anymore. But like if you can figure out, yes, but you closed them due to something very unique and you didn't know that from the CRM, then I think you have a stronger moat.
Wow. That's wild. I'm like trying to figure out. No, you know what? I'm trying to figure out in general how fast everything is moving. I've been working on a bit of packaging on potential product services the other day. How much? And I had to pause a bit from using ChatGPT and Gemini for with the Plus, and I literally used it for crafting the storytelling and then doing analysis and doing the research. And then I was comparing the results. It's wild how much information it gathers now.
Oh yeah. No.
It was just like
it is scary, but I think we need to create a new muscle which we've not had, which is like some critical things, right? So I was talking to a guy yesterday who works for a big growth company, and one in the sales like, oh look, I built this battle card. Like he was like really proud of himself. Like I took our thing, and I was like, here's his battle card. And the guy I talked to, he does like he does like commercial intelligence stuff like that. And then he said, yes, but that is a lie, right? And then the guy was like, what? Because it just hallucinates. But if you're not the person who did it, who's like amazed, like it's magic, but there's no critical sense of like, is it real? Like, does it make sense and stuff like that?
And is it a valid as well? I did some proof checking experiments and
no, it's
fact
not.
checking.
No,
it's not.
But you have to like not to go all technical in this podcast. It's like you have to remember the job of an LLM is just to answer you. Like
that's correct.
It's just the base. Yeah. That's my job. Like I have to answer you somehow. The more data you give me, the better the answer, because I have something to look at. So of course, this is where if you go from like ChatGPT to just asking to vertical products who like has thought about the data, and then you will get a better results, because it's either we don't have an answer or we have an answer we trust to give you. Like this is kind of which is better, which is why I think a lot of people are investing into vertical SaaS vertical AI, because that you can kind of guardrail things, but people are not critical yet, right?
No. They take it for granted, and you can clearly see it.
This is why you see stuff like this AI SDRs. People like the value proposition of that is like sounds amazing. Like, wait a minute, so I can have an AI call thousands of company a day and just book meetings for me. Who would not pay for that? Like I think of course. Of course. But the thing is like the reality to that expectations were so far away. Like, because coming back to my point of like knowing the customer, you actually need to know every type of customer to be able to pitch the same way. And that's what an SDR person will do. And it's like a human being will be like, oh yeah, I called this type of company last week and he said this and that. And then I did like, so there has to be some system into it. I think a lot of them are trying to do that. But I think the premise of that is like 3 to 5 years from now.
Okay. And what about the product loops and actually feedback loops, right? So since we're building that fast, it's also changing. How do you see it evolving? And how often do we need now actually to iterate and react?
I actually think we sometimes overinvest in how fast we need to iterate, but we tend to think we need to iterate all the time without thinking about what's the real problem, right? People have products, and this thing is working fine. Why do we need to iterate? Right? Why do we need to invest more into that? So I think we have to be clever about where we need to figure out something. I don't think there's a speed of loop. I don't think there's like a benchmark. We have to iterate every week. We have to iterate every day. I think we have to iterate on things that's not working or working and scaling it. And then we have to kind of figure out what that is more than just like, we have a team who's doing settings in the platform and we've invested a team now. So now they need to do releases all the time. You know what I mean? This I've seen this in many companies. And then the settings teams think like, okay, we need to do something. You know, we're here all getting salaries and stuff.
Do you remember bi-weekly product releases all the time? No matter, you have to release it.
You have to have
you
it.
have to have a release.
Something, right?
That's what people pay for.
I get that, but I think coming back to like what like an interesting collapse of like, you know, where I've been like in Falcon was a good example. We were accelerating the size of the company. You don't see this anymore. I actually, you know, everyone is celebrating that Cursor's 20 people making this amount of money. I think this will be the benchmark in the future. And that requires, we're like, okay, we have room for 5 or 10 engineers. So where do we put our investment? Do we put it in the settings or do we put it in the something else or something else, right? Where before we were like, learn that we just built, you know, like this team does that. And I think this is actually up for grasp of like how modern companies should be building. It's like, we just have great people solving problems. Let's figure out which problem we solve. It doesn't matter if it's in settings or in this thing and that thing. And I think we can learn a lot from a company like 37 Signals, like Basecamp. I've always been a big fan of David and Ryan's. It's like they have really they've spoken about 10, 15 years about this. Like it's not about execution. It's not about building teams. It's about just solving one good problem at a time and then just put the right people in the room to do it. And I think this is coming back. It's coming a lot back too.
I think that's what we can sense now from the market sensing what's happening with all the layoffs and the companies shutting down their offices.
They're sitting there like,
just no need.
Why do we have 60 people doing this stuff, right? We're getting money back for it. And I think we're getting into a place now of like, people have to make conscious investment bets. Like I really like something we also try to in the last phases of me and Neurons is like, let's talk about investment bets. What are we willing to invest $1 million Danish kroner on? Like, are we willing to invest on this or on that? And it's like, instead of being like, oh, we have one team, they can just work on this and this other team can work on that. And it's like, yeah, but you're really just now deployed 2 million euros over a course of a period to something and you're not really sure, right? And I think a lot of companies fall into that mistake.
And since you're right now in your very early stage, you started kind of working on the stealth mode, in December, right? End of the year? Or
yeah, January.
January, beginning of January. How do you approach right now your own design of the problem and working with the market and trying to find that?
I think a lot of it is around, in the beginning, you can't really accelerate and scale learning because you have no one to learn from yet. So you first have to build access to people who are the right people. I think something we did, which I've never done before, and I don't know, many founders I've seen make the mistake or some have been good at it, try to really define your SAP in the beginning. Who do I really imagine or dream about using this product? And then kind of like, what do they look like as a company? What kind of people do they have? What kind of problem do they have? And I think the more you think about this in the beginning, the quicker you will learn if you're on the right, path or not. I think we actually had one idea in mind. We threw that out. We were like, okay, that's not working. And then we had another idea, which we still believe is true, but it's too far away to build. So we were trying to find like, what's the first thing we could do to accelerate? So we were like, okay, we want to accelerate customer intelligence. We're like, but then we need to do all of this and all of this. And I was like, yes. And then we're like, okay, we can go build for 6-7 months doing that. But now we're actually like, there's actually this one thing we could do to accelerate, just one thing. And actually now we're building and launching this in May already, right?
Ooh, that's so exciting.
So I think like there's like this, you know, and it requires a lot of discipline. And we were horrible at it. Like for weeks, we were like, yeah, we just need to build this long thing. We'll do this for 6 months. And we were like, wait a minute, like we're kind of dumb now. Like, what are we doing? Like, we have to take our own medicine here. It's like, okay, are we willing to invest 6 months doing this? And we were like, no, not really. That's scary. Okay, can we invest 1 month doing this? And we're like, yes, okay, that's what we're gonna do and try to see if that works.
I love it. That kind of reminds me a bit of this concept. Well, I always was running away from the goal setting and all the frameworks, but actually it does remind me of this very American way of goal setting. You have a very big vision.
Yeah.
You break it down. You really set the focus area and you take it from there, small steps. That helped me this learning this mindset.
I think I don't think I embrace. I haven't thought of embrace American culture like that, but I do. One thing I really like, and I've been more obsessed about it in the last year or so, is really what's called opportunity map, right? So like coming back to like, can I have a healthier body? Like I would love that, but there's like 900 ways I could do that, right? So it's like, which opportunities do I have, and which one compels to me the most, and which one we believe that will work the best for me? If we just take my health as one example, then that's a backwards working opportunity map. And then it's easy to figure out, okay, this is the thing we could go do. Where we tend to go the other way around. It's just like, I just need to be healthy. So I just like to do all this stuff, right? And it's just like
5 a.m. wake up, 5:30
exactly.
hitting
5 a.m.
smoothie, red light therapy.
Exactly. Like sauna cruise and, intermittent fasting, and the Govi, and we just keep going, right? It's just like
4 hours after you woke up,
you're
at
like
4:30, you're dead.
Yeah,
You need
exactly.
to sleep.
Exactly. So I think you have to like, and then it's also about like your appetite. Like, what do you like? Like, what do you believe? So even though you made an opportunity map, and you gave it to you and you gave it to me, you probably would pick something else because you have it like, I believe more in something, or it just attaches more to the way I look at the world or the way I see the customers and the problem. So there's a lot of that kind of element. So I think there's still some personality into it's not being like very business. It's just like we have to go there. So this is I think you can still be like, oh, I believe, like actually we believe a lot in audio. Like I think audio is a really interesting medium. It's like, okay, if you take surveys as an example. So people write in surveys. I'm pretty sure you'll write, I don't like this product because of the UX. That would probably be, but if I asked you now, why did you like this product? Oh, I'm very frustrated. And every time I was trying to do this and this. So it's so much more rich than just a survey, right? And that's also a place you can accelerate your understanding of the customer base, like using audio to maybe get more data than you had yesterday, right? So there's a lot of these kind of like angles and nuances where someone will believe in surveys still and someone will believe in audio. So even though we're solving the same problem, we just approach it very different. And that's different ways of opportunities that we will look at it. I think that's where I think the whole building businesses are super exciting. And the nuances of that is interesting.
Yeah, well, that sounds definitely exciting. I just now want to continue building and creating because I can feel that excitement and I can see it from your eyes. Talking about building. So with whom are you building this?
This with?
Yeah.
I'm building with people I've known for, some of them I've known for 3-4 years. Some of them I've known for more than 10 years.
That's so cool.
So it's like people I like, I trust, people I respect a lot on building products, like who's like has like a really high level of craftsmanship into it.
How many people are you in the team?
We're 4 at the moment, all working for $0 and bootstrapping it as much as we can.
Okay.
But I think this is something I learned from a previous experience. Build something new. I don't like this whole like family and all this other stuff. But like I play football still, and I play the best with the team where there's the best affection for each other to succeed. Right? Like we all want us to win together. And I don't care if you scored a goal or I scored a goal, as long as we score goals, where you have other team dynamics with someone is like, I want to score all the goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think I learned a little bit about that, also about myself. What is the right people around me that will elevate me as much as I will elevate them? And I think this is something like you have to really consider when building a co-founder team. I think too many think like, oh, great, you do podcasts, great. I do products. Let's build a product together. Right? It's just like, and it can work. Like it can. I'm not saying that, but sometimes we're a little bit too opportunistic about it and not really thinking about like, okay, we're going to live together with this person for 10 years. Right? We're going to play on the same football team for 10 years, but I don't look at it as like, I'm going to be married to my co-founder. Like we're not. We're not going to solve each other's problems at home and, like all this type of stuff. And I'm not saying you don't go through, hell and fire together, but like, that's what I do with my team and my family's different, and I think that's you have to think a little bit about that. And
How important it is the matching different skill set? For example, you're very experienced both in product, in scaling. How about the other team members? Do you have some kind of clashing skill set? Or it's more like from...
Actually, we have a funny dynamic. So we're like 2 co-founders and 2 founding team members. And one of our founding team members used to be the manager of my co-founder, right? So it's like, but then right now, because we want to build the company as like a first principle as small as possible, right? So like, can we get to 100 million at 20 people? Or can, like, we really want to like, so that's then this whole like who manages who and where and what doesn't really matter at this point in time, right? So I think we need to have people who understand the journey they're going to go into and the different complexity of work of that, and not have like I don't want to do that because that's not me. Like you know, like it's just like okay, but we don't.
Can you even have that in startups?
You will find people who are like this. Like to be honest, like we're actually looking actively for like a go-to-market role in our team, and some people are like, yeah, I can, you know, this is interesting, but like, what is your budget for bringing a team? It's like, no, it's going to be you for like a year or 2, right? It's like, if we're going to bring a team member, it's because you did something great, and then you can bring a team member. And I think this is a really good example of like finding the right people. There are a lot of people who think they can go from IC, who's been like in a growing startup, and then go back to 0, and it's not the same.
I was listening to some of the best entrepreneurs, or Naval Ravikant just showed up on a new podcast, and he was talking about some big entrepreneurs and how great it is actually not necessarily to admit everything what they're doing, but in general to see that power of vulnerability, to start from 0 all the time. Power of going to taking that roller coaster ride, because it is uncomfortable, right?
It is, but like, sorry if I'm boring the audience, but like, I'm a huge football nerd, right? And I've trained and coached football for many years. And each new season is like a reset, right? So you work really hard for, you know, then you get your funding, and then it's like a reset, right? And then a few players leave, the competition is different, they also made themselves strong, you know, like, and then you're like, okay, shit, we have to play Real Madrid in the first game, you know, like this whole like thing happens in your head. So, I really like to think about it like that. Like we have a team right now, we're working on a season, you know, when this season is over, we're going to go back to 0 again, and then we're going to rebuild with what all the knowledge we have and the team we have now, but maybe not the whole team. And then we can go again. And I think you have to like that process. Otherwise you're kind of screwed. Right. And I think, yes, maybe seasons later on can feel like 3 years instead of 1 year and stuff like that. That doesn't really matter. It's still kind of same. Because it's just a season to a goal, and then you get there, and you're like, and it's funny if you think about it in sales, like you do a quarter, you're like, yay, and then Monday you're like, now you're at 0 again, and then you're like, and it's funny because I've always been one of those product people who spend a lot of time on the sales floor, because I really like, I actually honestly respect the work there. It's not, and a lot of people take shit at it and be like, you know, they're just like this type of people. It's like, yes, it's because like imagine coming to work and just like now you're at 0 again. Like I have huge respect for that. And I would love that I could have that same muscle that most salespeople have. Like, I think it's a really, really interesting job. I wouldn't be able to do it full time. Like, I couldn't, you know, every day just like on the call, quarter. I couldn't do it. That's not for me. But like, I have huge respect for people who can do it. But it's like going back to 0, just with 3 months. So it's not 3 years. It's like getting back to that 0 again.
That's wild, but that's such a great comparison, actually. I think I love how it kind of, for everyone maybe who is not that much into the startup world, we put it into a cycle. Look, we're getting closer to the end, Dennis, but I have a couple of questions on my mind. One of them, well, there are different ways to build startups. You chose to go stealth way. Is there the reason behind, or what does it mean building stealth?
I think when we did it, we were like, okay, you know, like we want to tell the world we left.
And you didn't have a name, so
we didn't have a name, no doubt. We didn't have a name. We do have a name now, but like I think some people use it as a funding mechanism, right? And there's no doubt, like we had like tons of inbound, you know, like our backgrounds and stealth, and it's like, oh, exciting and stuff like that. But I think it forces me to wait a little bit to what we're clear what we're doing. So as I said, we built something, we throw it out, we thought it was long. Now we're like, okay, we can do this. So now we can go out of stealth and say this, right? Some people go for years in stealth and are able to fundraise in that and then wait until they're like, sure. I do like the idea of being slow before you really go out and push in the market, because you need to be able to consume either no response or a lot of response or in the middle, right? Like, So I think it's a technique. I don't think.
It sounds like a great technique, actually.
Yeah, but I think it's some people it's technique for fundraisers. Some people it's like I want to have time to figure out what I'm doing, and other people it's just like.
But showing that you're kind of available for the investor side as well.
Exactly.
It's very smart, yeah.
I'm not saying it's the best way to do it, but
No. But I was curious, what's the logic behind? Because exactly.
we didn't have a name. We didn't know exactly. We
Perfect.
knew the problem, but not
Yeah.
how we would do it. And I think that's how we approach.
And you were working on something and you wanted to create awareness. Amazing. And what about your launch now in May? Is it something that you are ready to share, or we're waiting for?
You're the first one publicly to know this.
Oh my God! Really?
getting a
Are we
scoop?
sharing? Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm gonna look stupid in May. We're like, oh, it's gonna be in June. No.
No. I'm gonna launch it now for the launch. That's a deal.
No, I think our plan is to kind of go in beta in a little bit more public in May, just to like really get a grasp of what the market response is. This like first approach to it. So like we want to build multiple cycles of how we accelerate customer intelligence. And this is just our first step, right? So we think it's like a very small, minute thing, but it's enough to kind of create a momentum and show to people, if you start doing this, you get more than you had yesterday. Then we can actually append across that process and kind of scale from there. But, we don't know if all of it works yet. Like we have some design partners, we're testing with customers and stuff like that.
Okay.
We have to see how that scales.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna see if that scales or not.
Or maybe I'm looking for a job in June.
It's okay. We'll send you the link.
You send me the link? Yes, true. That's true. Yeah. Or we could do a co-op partnership on podcast as well. Like,
Yeah,
that's a
sure.
background job.
Yeah, you both used to have a podcast.
Yes,
right?
I did.
What was your podcast about? Tell us.
So it was when I built Duo, which is a management. We were trying to help managers with running better one-on-ones and stuff like that. So we had a podcast called People at Work. So we're just talking about like different culture dynamics and leadership styles and stuff like that. And coming back to like the audio piece, I'm a big consumer of podcasts myself. I think I listen to like at least 1 or 2 a day. I think they could be shorter sometimes. Sometimes a distilled version versus a long version could be good. But I think it's an absolutely great medium, and I like to talk to people. So
You're good at this.
it was a little bit like great. It's just easy.
I thought you were just recording the employees' annual reviews.
No, that was a great. Yeah, John is an idiot. Yes, that would have been funny actually as well. I do actually like those. Sweet. There's like this one guy. He gets like email threats of like really bad management. Have you seen them on Instagram?
No, I think I
I'm
haven't.
not on TikTok, so but so it's really cool. Like, so he reads up like how managers are responding to employees, and some of them are like horrible, right? It's just like people on vacation. It's like, yeah, I need this report today. It's like, I'm on vacation. It's like, yeah, I don't care. Like, you have to deliver today. It's like, but I'm on vacation. Like, and that's a fun show. But it could be fun you could do, which is like VC founder experiences. They are also fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess we're going to have some interesting collabs in the upcoming episodes. Thank you for bearing with us here almost an hour, actually. Yeah, time flies, right?
Yeah,
and I still have so many questions, but I guess I will leave it.
We make it 2 parts.
We will make it. It's always like that, right? You're not fitting into the time. Oh, we're going to do part 2. But no, we're going to actually touch base. How is it going to building again from
Let's
hero
do
to
that.
hero?
I'll tell you about the failure or not failure. Let's see.
Yeah, it's
the
gonna
system
be
works.
interesting. Like in half a year to see, because you said first you're not gonna go straight to the moon with half a year, and you just shared a very actual case of how to start something and build from the beginning and in smaller pieces, chunks of pieces, with a very interesting approach. So that would be super valuable. But final thing, I like to leave audience with a thought to ponder through the day. So what would be your question or thought to ponder for all the people who are listening today with us, who wanted to learn about product, about you, about startups?
Wow, I haven't. Okay, now you're putting
haven't?
me on the spot. Like, can it be philosophical?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Anything you want.
I hate being this guy. Like, everything has to be purpose driven, but you really have to ask yourself, like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, I'm quite meticulously. I teach football because I like the sport, but I also like the interaction, like these young kids who have the same love for the same sport as me. So I like to bring the same love and passion for something back. That's why I do that. And, as I told earlier, I like to break things apart and I understand things, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think people have to think more about that, because jobs are just jobs. And I know it's very, like, I'm not fortunate to take every job either, right? But like, I think if you can get to a place where you really think about why you're doing things, and that could be the current job you have, I think things would be easier.
Oh, Dennis, thank you so much for jumping into Perception Paradox.
I'm in a paradox already. So things are like.
Good luck with your launch and with keep building. And yeah, guys, thank you
you.
very much for tuning in and for listening, and see you next time.
See you.
Bye.